My father lied that he was a secret agent. He would tell stories about top-secret missions, classified documents, foreign operations, how he fought dangerous people, and how he captured and exposed those who were threatening our America. He drove luxury cars, wore expensive suits and watches. But behind all those stories was a life of lies. People said teenagers rebelled against their parents, but in our house, rebellion was replaced with resignation. Not because there had been mutual respect, but because words had meant nothing there. Promises had been made only to be broken. My name is Daniel. I'm 25 years old, and I work as a project coordinator for an engineering firm. I have a steady income, my own apartment, and a life I've built from scratch. But it wasn't always this way. Today, I'm telling you the story of my childhood, a chaotic, exhausting time shaped by my father's irresponsibility and my mother's endless struggle to keep our family afloat. My father, Richard, always claimed he was a secret agent. He made it sound like some kind of thrilling spy movie role, top secret missions, classified documents, foreign operations. He would tell stories about what he did, how he fought dangerous people, how he captured and exposed those who were threatening our America. He even told us, "No one can know what I do. Not even you. It's for your own safety." I was 10 when he first said it, and I remember being proud. My dad wasn't just a dad. He was special. But as the years passed, the glamour faded. If he was such an important agent, why did we live like we were one paycheck away from drowning? Why did my mother work herself into exhaustion, double shifts, overtime, sometimes coming home with her uniform still smelling of grease and sweat, just to keep food on the table and pay my school fees? At first, my mother, Anna, defended him. She said being a secret agent meant sacrifices, long absences, and secrets we couldn't question. That the money wasn't steady because missions came and went, and sometimes he had to go dark for weeks. She told me to be patient, to trust him, that one day we'd understand. She'd repeat his words like a shield, convincing herself as much as she was trying to convince me. And I did. For a while, I believed her, believed him, and even felt proud that my father was out there doing something important, never imagining that behind all those stories was a life of lies. My father came and went as he pleased, wearing expensive suits and driving a luxury car, while bills piled up on the kitchen counter. His so-called secret agent missions were endless excuses for why he couldn't be home, why he couldn't help, why every responsibility fell on my mother's shoulders. My mother worked double shifts, sometimes barely sleeping, just to keep the lights on and food on the table. My father, on the other hand, spent his nights in casinos, drowning in noise and bright lights, or in the company of another woman, my mother's own friend. While my mother counted every coin to make rent, my father gambled away what little he had, chasing thrills instead of providing for his family. Our home became heavy with my mother's quiet exhaustion. The way she stared at receipts like they might magically shrink, the way her hands trembled after endless overtime shifts, the way she smiled tightly when neighbors asked where my father was. She carried the weight of his irresponsibility every single day, while my father lived like the world owed him pleasure and freedom. Then small cracks appeared. One day, she needed money for my school trip, a trip that cost less than the price of one of Dad's shirts. He said he couldn't access funds right now. Another time, he promised to be home for my birthday, then called at midnight claiming he was out of the country. A few days after that, Mom went to the bank to withdraw some money from the fixed deposits she had invested years ago. While she was there, she ran into a mutual friend, David. At first, David seemed hesitant to say anything, but eventually, his expression shifted, and he told her the truth. He had seen my father at an exclusive casino downtown that very night, not alone, but with her own female friend. He said he was deeply sorry for everything my mother was going through and admitted he had been suspicious of my father's behavior for a long time, but had kept quiet because he felt it wasn't his place to speak. That's when the pieces started to fall into place. My father wasn't a secret agent. He was a gambler, a reckless, frivolous man who lived for the thrill of throwing money at poker tables and roulette wheels. He had no fixed income, no mission, no loyalty, except to his own selfish pleasures. And worse, he wasn't even spending his time alone. When he wasn't holed up in smoky casinos, chasing luck that never lasted, he was entertaining himself in the company of women, most often my mother's own friend. while my mother dragged herself through endless shifts just to keep our home standing. He wasted his nights sipping expensive liquor, laughing over stacked chips, and pretending he was a man of importance. The truth was, he wasn't risking his life for his country. He was risking our future for his addiction. After being gone for weeks, one day my father returned, not like a man coming home, but like someone paying a casual visit. He walked in with his usual air, the same self-important swagger, as if he'd just come back from a high-stakes mission that only he could handle. But my mother's expression was different this time. There was no polite smile, no forced warmth, no small talk about where he'd been. He noticed it immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone sharp with suspicion. My mother took a long, slow exhale, then pulled out a chair at the dining table and sat down. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, when she said, "I know everything you've been up to." He blinked, still trying to read her. "What do you mean?" "I know about Clara," she continued, naming the woman who had been her close friend for years, the same woman who used to visit our home regularly, who had once sat in that very dining room laughing over tea with her. "I know how long you've been seeing her. I know about the hotels, the dinners, the afternoons at her house." Clara was a divorced woman with 2 children from her previous marriage. My mother's voice tightened as she spoke, recounting what she'd learned. How he and Clara had been meeting at restaurants where they thought no one would see them, checking into discreet hotels, and spending evenings at her home while her kids stayed with their grandparents. He shifted uncomfortably, but my mother didn't stop. "While I've been working 2 jobs to keep this family afloat, you've been out there gambling away what little we had and spending your time with her. Do you have any idea what that's done to me? To this family?" For once, he didn't have a rehearsed answer. Dad didn't even deny it at first. He just smirked and said, "You've been working too hard. Maybe you should relax a little." His voice dripped with mockery, as if the pain and betrayal she was feeling were nothing more than an overreaction. It was the same careless tone he used when brushing off a late bill or a broken promise. But this time it cut deeper. He leaned back in the chair, crossing his arms like he was the one being inconvenienced by the conversation. My mother stared at him, her hands clenched on the table, trying to hold herself together. That smirk told her everything. He didn't feel guilty, he didn't feel ashamed. In his mind, she was the problem for daring to confront him. That night, my mother cried in the kitchen while I sat in my room, fists clenched. I could hear the soft, uneven sound of her sobs over the faint hum of the refrigerator, each one cutting into me like a blade. I wanted to storm in and tell him exactly what I thought, to scream at him for every lie, every late night, every selfish choice. But I didn't. I stayed quiet, because I realized something. Shouting wouldn't change who he was. It wouldn't erase the smell of perfume that wasn't hers, the image of him laughing with another woman, or the years of strain etched into my mother's face. All it would do was waste more of the energy we barely had left. The weeks after that were chaos. Mom stopped defending him. She started telling me, in pieces, about his gambling debts, how he'd drained her savings more than once, how he'd promised her trips and a better life, but instead left her working herself to the bone. He spent his nights in casinos or at her house, the so-called friend, while Mom cooked and cleaned for a son he barely remembered he had. She confessed how many times she had hoped he would change, how often she had convinced herself his promises meant something, only to find herself standing alone with the bills. The tension in our home grew heavier by the day, doors slamming, phone calls cut short, the silence between them louder than any argument. My mother looked years older, her body bent with exhaustion, while my father carried on as if nothing had changed, laughing, drinking, and pretending the world revolved around him. Every time he came home, he'd act like nothing was wrong. Sometimes he'd bring expensive gifts, for himself, not for us. He'd admire his own reflection in the mirror, adjusting his designer jacket, while Mom stood there in her worn-out work shoes. He never once noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands were cracked from endless shifts, or how she tried to stretch every last coin to keep food on the table. To him, appearances mattered more than family. As long as he looked the part of a successful man, the watch, the car, the suit, he believed no one could see through the emptiness behind it all. Meanwhile, Mom's dignity was chipped away piece by piece, as she watched him bask in vanity while she carried the weight of survival on her shoulders. I was 17 by then, quiet and introverted, but inside I was burning. Watching my mother struggle made me sick. Watching him live like a king while we scraped by made me furious. I decided I wouldn't waste my life in that house. The moment I could, I'd move out, get a job, and start supporting Mom myself. And when that day came, I wouldn't tell Dad where I was going. Because unlike him, I keep my promises. Mom left my father a few months after everything came out. She and I moved into a rented apartment together. Honestly, it was peaceful after moving out. Yes, my father was never really around, and you might think that shouldn't make a difference. But I won't lie. It was a relief to finally stay away from someone who only brought mental exhaustion. Knowing he had nothing to do with our lives anymore, and that we had nothing to do with him, felt like finding a whole new life, especially for Mom. And slowly, I began to see her getting better, healthier, and genuinely happy. Meanwhile, my father's life started crumbling down. He was drowning in debts. His so-called fancy lifestyle collapsed. And Clara left him, too, because she couldn't get any more financial support from him. It turned out all those expensive watches, clothes, and cars had been bought through loans. Now, Mom is married to Michael, one of her coworkers. Michael already knew everything about my father. He knew how hard my mom had worked for our family, how she worked double jobs, how everything fell on her shoulders while my father lived his fake, glamorous life. It's been 7 years now, and I've only seen my mom smiling and truly happy since she married Michael. As for my father, I remember how, after we moved out, he came begging Mom to return. He would show up every day and sit outside. Sometimes, he even knelt on the road and cried in front of everyone. People would watch, but Mom never went back. She could never return to the life she had with him, nor could she forget the pain she endured for 16 years. When he found out about Mom seeing Michael, he caused a scene. He stood outside, shouting, accusing her of cheating, as if he had forgotten everything he himself had done to her. That day, Mom had no choice but to call the police. They came, and he was forced to leave. I've heard my father is still being chased by casino people and creditors, living a life haunted by his own mistakes. They say he has aged so much. But for me and my mom, we just want to forget and keep moving forward with the life ahead. So guys, my life reflects a lesson on karma, a living, breathing example of it. What my father thought was strength and success turned out to be nothing more than illusions built on lies, debt, and betrayal. He hurt the very people who loved him the most, and in the end, he was left with nothing. Karma doesn't always come instantly, but it comes eventually. For years, my mom carried the burden of his irresponsibility, his addictions, his selfish choices. She paid the price for his so-called secret missions. But in the end, he paid his price too. He lost his family, his reputation, his wealth, and even the people he betrayed my mother with walked away when he had nothing left to give. Meanwhile, my mom, the one who sacrificed, endured, and carried me through the chaos, finally found peace, love, and respect. And I found strength in watching her rise from all of it. So if there's one truth I've learned, it's this. You can lie, you can pretend, you can gamble away your life thinking no one sees the truth. But karma sees everything. And sooner or later, it comes knocking. If you like the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.